and did a ton of damage. If this ability targeted your healer 2 times in a row, your healer was dead, and the rest of the fight wasn't exactly a cakewalk either. But the RNG component to the fight made it so that you'd sometimes just auto-lose if you were unlucky, and there wasn't much you could do about it. That's just bad design, and the only way you can get around this flawed mechanic was by having a second healer. His other phases weren't no joke either. He cycled through a few phases, and only uses Impale during his mace phase. Also during this phase, the tank had to kite the boss around the room because he did unhealable damage. His sword phase made him attack faster and put a stacking dot on the tank, which had to be constantly dispelled. And his shield phase required the Ray to get behind the boss quickly or be burned to death. And while on the backside, he got shot by untargetable archers in a wall. And did I forget to mention this boss was slightly overtuned during its launch? Even without your healer randomly dying to unavoidable bad luck, you'd still have a hard time with it. Forge Master was a monster of a boss fight, but most players didn't even consider him the hardest boss of the instance. That honor went to the last boss, Iridax. The boss required coordination on par with a mid-range raid boss, which was too much to handle for most pugs. If the tank sucked or wasn't geared enough, he could die to the boss's spiky damage. DPS could get 3-shot by the Binding Shadows. He had to stand in the fire to not be killed by the raid-wide damage, and he had to burn down the 2 ads that spawned and ran to opposite sides of the room. Even experienced groups had difficulty with this fight. This may come as no surprise, but both Forge Master and Iridax got nerfed multiple times to make them a little less ridiculous as time went on.
Who dares awaken Arcadus? Who dares the wrath of the Makers?
Number 7. Arcadus. This boss was higher level than the rest of the instance. He was level 47. Everyone else in the place was around level 35 to 40. There was a half-point way door, which suggested the first half was supposed to be for low-level players and the second half was for high-level players. But they abandoned that along the way and forgot about the last boss when making the shift. The fight itself had the boss periodically summon ads to kill, which for a low-level dungeon group was not something you'd be used to. Plus, many classes didn't have their AoE spells yet, or have an AoE at all. And if you ignored the ads, you could get run over pretty quickly. At the end of the fight, when the boss was low on health, he spawned a group of elite ads that you could either deal with, or ignore and burn the boss before they killed you. This boss had one of the highest kill counts in vanilla, higher than even some raid bosses for its difficulty to low-level players. But, to be fair, its difficulty stemmed from it being a way higher level than it really should have been. Blizzard did the same thing in a few other vanilla dungeons to make the final boss harder. They just made him a higher level than everything else.
Lackeys be damned! I'll finish you myself!
Number 6. Priestess Delarissa. This fight is a lot like Faction Champions, in that if you treat it like a regular PvE fight, you're going to have a very hard time. But if you treat the fight like a 5v5 arena match, it goes a lot smoother. The ads constantly reset aggro and make a beeline for the healer. They don't hit very hard, but they do all have some sorts of different CCs. The ads can be CC'd themselves, but the priestess will dispel most of them, so you usually want to kill her first. If you're unlucky, you might find yourself CC'd to death though. So the fight was a mixed bag, and could be really easy or annoyingly difficult. It's on the list for being a somewhat hard boss that required you to play differently to make it easier. And people didn't really like it, kinda like how Faction Champs is one of the most hated raid fights.